a random collection of various Git tips and Git scripts and ideas. It'd probably be familiar to anybody that's used Git for a number of years, but I hope it's one or two slides that might pique your interest, or things that you might think, ah, that's useful. And if you're not familiar with Git, this might be a bit confusing, but again, maybe it might pique your interest. So the first slide is having something on your prompt is very helpful. And if you go onto GitHub and search for Git prompt or Git status line or something, you'll see loads of these. But I prefer to keep it simple. So what I have here is, you can see that I have the branch in green, and it's in green because the working directory is clean, there's no changes. And if I make changes, it goes red. So just at a glance, I can see that I've got changes. But I have a little bit more than that. If I put something in the stash, I get a little number to tell me how many things are in the stash. And because generally a stash is linked to a branch, if I switch to another branch or I'm attached to it, it doesn't matter. That stash number disappears. Because I have lots of branches and I end up stashing things and moving between branches and moving back to branches, and I forget that I had a stash and do the same work again. That's a useful little thing to tell me, oh, you've probably got something that you want to look at again here. And that's a very trivial function in my bash RC. I won't go through it. It's on, if you go to my GitHub, which is Lido, and you go to this talk, or this call there, so you can. Yeah, so true. Well, it's only because the font is big, so it looks worse than it is, but it's just basically this runs Git status, give it a branch. Because I'm on a Mac, instead it's special on the Mac, it has to do something slightly different. Then get some good stashes and at the bottom, stick this in the prompt. So, yeah, it's very useful, I find. Probably the most useful thing that I've done in terms of adding stuff to my bash RC. The next one is creating aliases and adding these to your Git config. I'm sure we all do this. So I have obviously I don't want to write checkout every time on the command line. And that alias branch to be the more verbose version of Git branch. So if I git checkout, I get the origin and I get the last commit. And if those branches are up to date or behind with remote, it will tell me. Which again is quite useful.
Question.
Yeah.
Why do you have that exclamation mark Git there? Wouldn't BR equals branch dash VV suffix?
I can't remember. I'm sure there's a reason for it. Maybe it's because, no, you're probably right, because I have status minus SB there. So I did that so many years ago that I forget the reason I did it. So maybe it was an old version of Git perhaps, and that's kind of a hangover from me. And I have a few more aliases in my config. I want to get a nice, pretty log there, verbs, and then one which just gives me my commits. And I also tend to ignore a lot of the Git commands I run in my history, because I'm not just used to having Git pull, Git push, Git check in the history, so I add that to my bash RC, and it ignores stuff. Which I got to remember I do, because I could do a command and then hit the up arrow and hit enter, and the command was actually ignored, and I might end up running something I shouldn't have run. So yeah, I've got to keep that in mind. Yeah. Another useful thing here is you can actually add aliases and a config to a specific repo. So this is Reaver pointed this to me. It's the DivX class. Specific config, and you see it's doing if it's this remote, etc., etc. There's a load of stuff there, but that's just for Divic. It's just in the Divic repo, so you can have repo specific aliases and configs. It's quite useful. Okay, number 3 is I use work in progress branches quite a lot, and I tend to make branches of branches and branches of branches and branches of branches. And the reason I do that is I find myself doing a lot of small changes, but when I want to push that out to somebody to squash those changes down. I don't want changes breaking tests that are going to get merged back to master. And if you're doing a work in progress branch, it's very easy to do that. But you don't want to be running different tests every time you do work in progress, because maybe your tests take 5, 10, 15 minutes an hour. And if you're running continuous integration, you can just push those work in progress branches out. Then at the end of the day or whatever, you can see, oh, I brought some tests there, so I'll squash them down. So that's another reason to squash them down. And there's an example here from a change I was making a few weeks ago now. So I had these 2 work in progress commits. As you can see, it was actually showing some tests. And it was the end of the day, so I wanted to push it out because I didn't want to have just one copy on here. I wanted it to go out to the actual remote server. So I said, right, it's a work in progress. And then I squashed it down in the end. And we're using GitLab, which will look at your branch name and see that you have WIP in it, and it won't let somebody use the web interface to merge that branch. So it captures those.
So WP is like a magic.
WIP, yeah, work in progress. And I think there might be others as well. You can probably configure it to pick up on those. And related to that is I think that no single commit should break tests. It is difficult to achieve, but try to aim for it. As I said, push it out, look at the continuous integration results. Okay, test broken, let's figure it out and squash them around. And the big reason for that is obviously git bisect. Is anybody not familiar with git bisect or not actually run git bisect before?
I have never run it.
Okay, that's good. I've got a little demo. Yeah, it saved me literally days of debugging in the past. So this is why having commits that don't break your test is useful. So say for example, I've got a very trivial example here. All I'm doing is saying, when did this file appear in the repo? So this, if it exists, exit with an error. Obviously in the real case that would be a unit test or a set of unit tests or something else. And what you can tell Git is, you can say, okay, the current commit I'm on is bad. It's breaking the test, so it has a bug. And it'll say, oh, you want it to start bisect? Okay, let's start. And then you need to tell it when the good commit was. So if you know that 2 weeks ago the test was passed, you can find a commit from 2 weeks ago and give it that shout as well. I'm just using the commit from the start of the repo here. So I said git bisect. So this is a good shout. And it gives you a rough estimate of how many commits it's going to have to inspect just to figure out where the problem is. And then you can either manually run the tests and mark each commit as good or bad, or you can actually tell it, right, run this script or this set of tests, and as I'm running my test here. So it's found the commit that the problem was introduced. The problem here is I added a file, but that can be failing tests. And so if you have a good set of tests and you can find that commit that broke the test, then in theory you can find the bug much quicker. Imagine if the test there took 5-10 minutes to run. That can take an hour, 2 hours to run. But if you're having to manually check commits out and then the tests, just saves you all that work. And as I say, it's split with so many days of debugging in the past, especially with action at a distance and things like that. So that's why having single commits breaking tests is generally a bad thing, if you have good test coverage, of course. And in some ways related to that is, say you're working on the branch and you push out changes, and you realize that one of those commits does break a test, but you haven't yet merged this to master and you want to fix that commit because for whatever reason you're not going to squash those commits. You can use rebase to do that. I think the common use case of rebase is people want to merge changes back to master without having a merge commit. I'm not bothered about merge commits, but I do use rebase a lot to reorder commits in branches that I'm working on. So So I have another example here. So what do we have? We have this branch here. And I think I have some work in progress commits. Yeah, I do here. And what we can do is we can tell Git that we want to rebase from a certain point. So I'll take this commit here. Run an interactive rebase and it will fire up. Oh, it's already rebase. It'll fire up my editor and give me the list of commits. These are in reverse order to what you would see in Git log. But you can do things with these commits. You can reorder them, you can reword the commit message, you can squash them down, you can even delete them. So say for example I fixed my test, so I had the last commit here was fixing the test. I could actually move that up and squash that. This might fail because it's rebased. It's reordered the commits. That is conflicted. But if it didn't get a conflict, it would pop up my editor and say, okay, you've rebased, you probably want to write a better commit message now because you changed what you did. And that squashes down my test fix. I can push that out. The thing to bear in mind is if you're rebasing, you're changing the commit shards. So anybody that's also using that branch, you need to warn them. And you shouldn't. I tend to namespace my branches. So this is obviously rejo, which generally means it's my branch, hands off. Beware that things might change. If it's a shared branch, you probably don't want to do this.
And of course, if I share one of my personal branches on two machines, I still have the same problem.
Yeah, yeah, basically.
You can, you just have to be careful.
Yeah. Okay, what's next? Okay, this is one of the biggest things that annoys me is a lot of people don't write good commit messages. And I've termed this commit rot because if you go splunking in the history and you find a commit and it doesn't have a good commit message, you can't figure out the intention of that change. I want to know why it was changed, because often if there's no reason there, there's no reason for me not to revert it. But I think this is a bug. Why don't I just revert this commit? And that includes merge commits and reverts. So I actually have an example here, I think, So this was a So this was a revert I made in one of our repos because we removed a file that we didn't think was in use anymore, but it turned out it was in use, action at a distance. But I made a point of adding a little bit to the commit message to say why I reverted it. Because when you do a merge commit and you do a revert, Git will fire up your editor and it gets this little commit message, and you might think that's sufficient, but it's not sufficient. It's kind of the action, it's not why you're doing it. And because I know people will ask about this, I wrote a little script to download the top trending repos on GitHub and figure out the average commit message length for the past 200 commits. And this is the number of characters. And if you bear in mind that the headers, the commit char, the date, the author is around about 100 bytes, 100 characters. These are not very good. So the average commit message is generally something, and that's me being generous with the name and the date. So I don't know how you can express your intention in that. And again, because I know people will ask, I did actually look at some of the more well-known ones. So we have obviously the reason why Git was written was because we have quite long commit messages there. Nice. Well, it's not too good. this is a very popular open source framework, and when I've upgraded, I've had our application break. So I run git bisect on our application. Okay, it's not us. I'll run git bisect on the open source repo and find the commit. And if the commit that you said fix a few bugs. So then I have to go to the IRC channel and start arguing with the authors and say, is this your bug or is it our bug? And if I'm having to distract you from what you're doing, then your commit message isn't great. So try and make good commit messages.
I was confused. You didn't try to do that?
I didn't know. And because
it's interesting to see per authors. That's
yeah, actually, yeah, you can do that as well. And I have this little script that I wrote to tell me my own git commit message, so I can slap myself on the wrist if this starts going down too much. Obviously, you are going to have commits that do have short. You don't want to try and be excessively verbose when there's no reason to be verbose.
I was just wondering how much of the Linux commit messages are counted and signed off by.
The sign off by tends to be just 1 or 2 lines, and that's probably only going to be 50, 60.
Because I use that a lot.
Yeah, and they do often, they put the patch within the commit message, or the debug output, which again, you can be very cheap. You can bend git logs to your will, so there's no reason to be verbose there. Branches, yeah, I said lots and lots of branches. I'm sure we all know this. You end up in a state where you have loads of them and you're not quite sure what the state of them is. And there's a little Ruby script which I forked a few years ago which will tell you the state of your branches. So this is telling me that if you have a duty and they're merged in, and you have one that isn't merged in. And if I had some remote branches, it would tell me, it would be in a different colour to tell me that's remote, it's not merged in remotely, etc. The one there actually is merged in, I squash merged in, but it can't, because the commit shell has changed, it can't figure that out. And you can give it a config, so you can ignore, I can tell you what the integration branches are, because obviously if you're using the Perl 5 repo, it's bleed, not master. And I added regular expression support on the branching, so I don't have to see everybody else's branches that I don't really care about. Next. A little script that I wrote to help me when we're on a daily stand-up, which is actually a sit-down because we're using Slack, we're across remote offices. And all it does is it looks at the git logs within my working directory for the past 24 hours and prints out the commit messages. So I can see what I've been doing. And if we have a long weekend, there's the last 4 days, and I can give it different arguments. So that's very useful because all my repos are in till/working. So it just iterates through them, show me the git. Basically that's why it's running under the hood. This is just a little short one that I added because I was working somewhere and I was convinced that we had lots of scripts in a directory that hadn't been touched in years. But Git doesn't track directories, so you'd have to go into the directory and do a git log on each one. So I just wrote a quick wrapper around git log to actually give me the information at a glance. If I do git dirt lib, it's kind of like a blind bottom directory, so I'm kind of faking that we're tracking the directory. Not much to that really. And the last one is there are lots and lots of utility scripts on GitHub. If we go here, git extras. Yeah, there's a few, I think there's about 50 or 60 there. Some of the more interesting ones are Git summary, which gives you meta information about the repository.
yeah, cool.
Git efforts, which is quite useful because it tells you how many commits a particular file has, and you can order it in a way that you can see the files with the most churn, which is useful for figuring out, we should probably split this file into 2 files because it's churning over time, or maybe there's small bugs there or whatever. authors, populate authors, and this is useful if you accidentally push out one of those secret keys and git obliterate. I'm not sure how it works under the hood. I'm sure it's probably a combination of rebase and maybe fattening about in reflog. So I'm not sure, but if you accidentally do push out a secret key, that's might be useful. I think that's the end. Yeah, very simple. Any questions? Yeah.
I wanted to note about the commit messages and how long they are. The thing to remember is that there are two people who will check them out. Actually, it's the person who merges if it's not you, and then it's good to keep a lot of information because they can understand why you did this and what have you considered and is it leading to something else. And when you need to spelunk it in the future and then understand, like you said, why it was done. So maintaining length is always good.
I did write, I'm sure like many people, I wrote a long blog post on this. And the example I gave was when I was using MongoDB about 4 or 5 years ago, and they replaced readline with line noise. And that broke everything. Because if you used the job control and none of that spots anymore. So I looked at the commit message, and the commit message was literally replace readline with line noise, reference to the bug tracker. So I thought, okay, there's a reference to the bug tracker, I'll go to the bug tracker and see why this has happened. But the bug tracker said replace readline with line noise. You can imagine 10 years down the line, somebody's going to look back at that commit. Now the issue tracker probably won't exist anymore. The commit message doesn't tell them anything. What do we do? So that's why I try and write. I mean, this is typically what I do. So I'm saying I've swapped out LWP and ZML from a delicious user agent because I was seeing test over this. And It's just useful information to have. And it takes all of 30 seconds, I think, to add that. And one of the things I didn't show here is when I do actually commit stuff, my editor splits the diff with my commit message, so I can remind myself of what I've been doing. And that's just a little, but again, that's here on the repo, it's just a little 5-line addition to the vim.rc. Any more questions? Nick?
It wasn't really a question, but an observation related by set. One of the most useful things I have, and I thought it was a shell script as opposed to a 4-liner called not that inverts the exit code.
Right.
So you can do git bisect run not git grep. And look for the for when things succeeded.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you are running git bisect and you figure that, oh, we don't have any tests to test this, you can actually write the test, but you have to do it outside the repo. Because git bisect will say, hey, I can't bisect where you have a dirty repo. Which is the example I gave there, it's a test to level up. Any more questions? Okay, thank you very much.